So I, 35M, have been married to my wife, 33F, for nearly 9 years. Together 11. No kids, just a dog and a shared mortgage, plus a whole lot of memories, good and bad. You know the type of couple that friends look at and say, "You two just work?" Yeah, that was us, until it wasn't. Lately, things had started to feel off. Not alarm bells blazing, but more like little hiccups in the rhythm we used to dance so well to. She used to be all about quality time. We'd make tacos on Thursdays, binge bad crime shows, and argue about who had the better Spotify playlists. Lately, she was too tired, too busy, or had work stuff. Sex went from spontaneous and frequent to obligatory and kind of distracted. Like I was sleeping with someone stuck in a buffering screen. She was constantly on her phone. Like, chronically. Even in the bathroom. I half-joked one night, "You're gonna get thumb arthritis from all that scrolling." She laughed it off, said it was just group chats with her friends, memes, you know, the usual. Except it wasn't. Anyway, I didn't want to be that guy, the one who gets paranoid and controlling. I believed in trust. I thought we were solid. But when someone shows you a pattern, pay attention. That's what I've learned. So the weirdness escalated. She started staying out later after work, claiming there were team-building happy hours and client dinners. Now, she's in marketing, so those aren't out of the question, but they started happening twice, sometimes 3 times a week. Always with the same excuse, it's for the new product launch. One night, she came home at 11:40 p.m. drunk. Red lipstick slightly smudged, perfume different from the one she usually wore. I asked how the dinner went. She gave me some vague rundown of office politics and how the guy from finance drank too much and started talking crypto. I let it slide, but my gut didn't. The turning point came on a random Wednesday. She was in the shower, and her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Now, I've never been the snooping type. I always thought if you had to check your partner's phone, the trust was already dead. But something inside me clicked. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was survival instinct. Either way, I picked it up. The preview of the message was from a guy named Brent. I didn't recognize the name. Definitely not someone she'd mentioned. It said, "Last night was amazing. Still thinking about your body on my couch. Let me know when your husband's out of town again." Winking face. My stomach turned cold. I froze, phone still in hand, hearing the water running in the background. That moment, heart pounding, hands shaking, the dull sound of water muffling everything, I'll never forget it. She stepped out, towel wrapped around her, smiling like nothing happened. Said, "What are you looking at?" I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You tell me." So I hold up the phone and read the message aloud, word for word. No drama, no shouting. Just cold and clear. Her smile cracked instantly. She stared at me like a deer caught halfway between denial and damage control. She goes, "Wait, what? That's not what it looks like." I gave her a look I reserve for toddlers caught stealing cookies. Then explain it to me. Cue the mental gymnastics. "It's a joke," she said. "He's just some guy from work who flirts with everyone. He sends stuff like that to half the office. It's just his sense of humor." Right. Because casual coworkers often reference your body and your husband's travel schedule in emoji-laced sexts. Makes total sense. I asked her, "So you didn't sleep with him?" She hesitated, a little too long, and then said, "Of course not. He's just trying to get under my skin. He knows I'm married." I didn't even respond. Funny. The message was part of a thread. And unless ghosts had taken over her thumbs, she definitely responded. I scrolled. The rest of the conversation? Deleted. That's when she got defensive. Said I invaded her privacy. Called me controlling. Said she couldn't believe I would go through her phone. Oh, the irony. I told her flat out, if there was nothing to hide, you wouldn't be panicking right now. And then came the real kicker. She crossed her arms, looked me dead in the face, and said, "Fine. We kissed once." It meant nothing. There it was, the first crumb of truth. I knew better than to think it stopped there. After she dropped the "we kissed once" line like it was a parking ticket, I sat down at the edge of the bed and took a long breath. I wasn't angry in that moment. I was something worse, calm. Too calm. That kind of clarity where the world slows down and everything suddenly looks sharper. I said, "Okay. So you kissed a coworker?" "Once. After drinks. Totally innocent mistake, right?" She nodded, biting her lip. "Exactly. I felt horrible about it. I didn't want to tell you because I knew it would hurt you." Ah yes, the classic "I lied because I love you" maneuver. That one deserves its own Olympic event. I stood up and looked at her. "And what about the message? About your body on his couch? That was from last night." Her face dropped. She was cornered. For a split second, I actually felt sorry for her. Then she said, "Okay. We kissed more than once. And yes, I was at his place. But nothing happened." That's when I laughed. Couldn't help it. Just one dry, miserable chuckle. "You were at another man's apartment, he's texting you about your body on his couch, and you want me to believe you guys just prayed together and called it a night?" She didn't answer. Instead, she sat on the bed, staring at the floor, saying nothing. Which, honestly, said everything. I said, "You deleted the rest of the messages. That's not something people do when there's nothing to hide." She mumbled. I panicked. So I asked the million-dollar question, "Are you having an affair?" She looked up at me with glassy eyes, and for the first time in our entire relationship, she didn't look like my wife. She looked like a stranger. And then she said, "Yes." She said it so quietly I almost missed it. One word, yes. I just stood there, hands in my pockets, feeling like someone had pulled the floor out from under me. You ever have a moment where the world zooms out and you suddenly feel like you're watching your life from outside your body? That was me, right then. I asked, "How long?" She whispered, "A few months." My heart didn't break in that moment. It sort of sagged. Like an old couch you finally realize is beyond saving. She went on, "Because apparently once the dam breaks, you get the whole damn flood." Told me it started innocently. That old chestnut. Late nights working together, inside jokes, shoulder touches that lingered too long. She said Brent just made her feel seen. Made her feel seen. As if I'd spent the last decade of my life being legally blind to her existence. She admitted they slept together, twice. Then corrected herself, 3 times. But it wasn't like a thing. Not a thing? I almost asked if there's a spreadsheet that defines how many thrusts constitute a thing. But I let that one go. I was tired. Tired of the word games, tired of standing there like a crash test dummy in emotional traffic. She said, I was going to end it. I already told him it's over. I looked at her and said, "You didn't end it. You just got caught." Silence. Then she tried to cry, which might have worked if it hadn't felt like someone squeezing an eyedropper over a corpse. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just walked out into the backyard, sat down on the deck, and stared at the sky. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anything at all. So I sat out there on the deck for who knows how long. The stars were out, my dog came and laid his head on my foot like he knew something was off, and I just sat. No dramatic sobbing, no fist-clenching rage. Just numb. Then it hit me in waves, like heat after a sunburn. First came the embarrassment. Like, how did I miss this? Was I that oblivious? Was I too trusting, or just conveniently naive because it was easier than facing reality? Then came the anger. Not the red-faced shouting kind. The quiet kind that simmers in your chest like hot coals. Because I'd been loyal. I'd bent over backwards for this woman, celebrated her wins, held her through her breakdowns, did the dishes without being asked, remembered her mom's birthday, hell, I even ironed her damn conference outfits. And this is the thanks? She cheated, lied about it, gaslit me when I started asking questions, and only came clean when there was no other option. Not because she respected me, not because she felt guilty, but because the evidence was sitting right there on her lock screen. That night, I slept on the couch, not because she told me to, but because I couldn't stand the thought of being in the same bed with her. She poked her head out of the bedroom once, asked if I wanted to talk. I didn't even respond. I just rolled over. It wasn't just the betrayal of the sex. It was everything it represented. The cowardice. The disrespect. The sheer, goddamn selfishness. In that moment, I knew something had shifted in me. A part of me, maybe the part that still believed in forever, had quietly died. The next morning, she was already in the kitchen when I woke up. She'd made coffee, my favorite blend, even used the French press like I do when I'm in a good mood. Like she was trying to reset the clock. I walked in, gave her a look, and poured it straight down the drain. Petty? Maybe. But at that point, coffee from her hands tasted like betrayal. She said we needed to talk. I agreed, but not until I'd had a shower and 10 minutes of silence. Because honestly, I needed to armor up. Talking to her now felt like navigating a minefield where every step triggered some new level of disappointment. We sat down at the table. She was crying again, wearing that hoodie I got her for our 5th anniversary, the one she always said felt like a hug. The irony wasn't lost on me. I messed up, she said. No shit. I was lonely. You've been so distant lately. There it was. The subtle shift from apology to blame. Like I was somehow a co-conspirator in her infidelity. I've been working 2 jobs to keep us afloat, I said. You think I've been distant? Try exhausted. She said, I didn't mean for it to happen. Brent and I, it wasn't love. That was supposed to make me feel better. That she threw away our marriage for something so meaningless it didn't even qualify as love? I'd almost understand it more if it was love, I said. At least then you'd be following your heart. But this? This was just cheap. She cried harder. I didn't flinch. It's a strange thing, sitting across the table from someone whose face you know like your own reflection, and realizing you don't know them at all. That morning, I didn't see my wife. I saw a woman who could lie to my face, sleep in my bed, and say, I love you, with another man's fingerprints still on her skin. After that conversation, things got quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, more like the eerie silence after a building collapses and you're waiting to hear if anyone's still alive under the wreckage. We moved through the house like coworkers who'd just been laid off. Polite, distant, not making eye contact unless necessary. She offered to sleep in the guest room, and I didn't object. I wasn't ready to pretend we were okay, not even for appearances. Over the next couple days, she tried everything. Made my favorite meals. Left little notes around the house. One said, I still love you. Another, I'm sorry. I hate myself. But here's the thing, when you blow up someone's trust, you don't get to pick how fast they forgive you. You don't get to script your redemption arc. I went through a bizarre phase, hyperfunctioning. Cleaned the garage, reorganized the kitchen drawers, fixed a squeaky cabinet door that had been bugging me for a year. It was like if I kept putting the house back in order, maybe my life would follow. At night, I'd lie awake wondering how many moments had been fake. How many nights she climbed into bed with me, already carrying someone else's scent and secrets. I'd remember little things, her smiling at her phone, saying, "Just a meme," or those last-minute showers before dinner, and now every memory came with a question mark attached. I considered calling Brent. Just to see the face of the guy who bulldozed into my life like a wrecking ball. But then I realized, he wasn't the problem. He was just the opportunist. She opened the door. And maybe the hardest pill to swallow? I still loved her. That's when I realized this wasn't going to be a clean break. This was going to be a slow bleed. Once the initial fog cleared, I did what every millennial man does when life explodes. I told my best friend and my brother. You'd think they'd say something measured or diplomatic. Nope. Dude. She's trash. Take the L and move on, my buddy said, not even 5 minutes in. My brother, more the stoic type, just shook his head and muttered, "I always knew something was off with her." Which is funny, because just a year ago, he was saying we were relationship goals. Then came the unsolicited advice. Everyone had a take. Marriage is hard, man. Maybe this is a wake-up call. You've got no kids, run while you can. She probably did it because you were emotionally unavailable. You deserve better. You should try therapy. Just sleep with someone else. Call it even. Let me tell you, nothing makes you want to go off-grid like your private hell being treated like a group project. Even my mom chimed in after I let it slip. Forgiveness is godly, she said. Which would have carried more weight if she hadn't spent 20 years married to a man who cheated on her every other Christmas. It made me realize something important: people aren't reacting to your pain. They're projecting their own fears, failures, and experiences onto it. Half the time, they're talking to themselves more than they're talking to you. So I stopped asking. Stopped explaining. This was my mess. Mine to sort through. Mine to survive. The worst part? I still hadn't made a decision. Because leaving felt like giving up on the life we built. But staying felt like living in a museum of betrayal. Living with someone after they've broken your trust is like cohabiting with a ghost. She was there, physically, but her presence felt hollow. Like the woman I married had left the building, and this echo of her was just haunting the place. We didn't fight. That would have required energy. Mostly, we just moved around each other, exchanging the basics. Can you grab eggs? Trash goes out tonight. Like two divorced people who forgot to move out. And every now and then, she'd drop these little grenades of vulnerability. I think about what I did every day. I know I don't deserve you. You can ask me anything, I won't lie again. But here's the problem: once someone burns down your trust, the ashes don't rearrange themselves into a neat little pile. They just blow around in your mind, getting into places you didn't even know existed. I'd walk by the couch and wonder, was this where she texted him? That hoodie she wore to bed, did she wear it after being with him? The Spotify playlist she made for our anniversary, was she thinking of me when she picked those songs? One night, I was brushing my teeth, and she came in behind me, wrapped her arms around me like she used to. I froze. Not because I was angry. But because it felt fake. Like muscle memory trying to mimic love. She whispered, "I miss us." I didn't say a word. I couldn't. Because the truth was, I missed us too. But I didn't know if us still existed anymore. Or if I was just clinging to a memory of what used to be. And in that silence, I realized something brutal: you can't grieve someone who's still alive. But you can grieve the version of them you thought would never hurt you. It all came to a head one rainy Thursday. I remember because the power flickered, the dog was freaking out over the thunder, and I was standing in the kitchen staring at the dishwasher like it had personally offended me. She walked in with that look, you know the one. The "we need to talk" face. She sat down at the table, hands folded like she was bracing for a court sentence. "I've been thinking," she started. "We can't keep doing this. I can't keep hurting you by just being here." I nodded. "I'd been thinking the same thing." She said, "I love you. I've never stopped. But I also know I broke something, and I don't know if we can fix it." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, and said, "We can't fix anything if we don't know what we're fixing toward. Are we rebuilding a marriage or just coexisting because it's easier than splitting up the furniture?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said something I'll never forget: "I want to fight for us. But I also know you might not want to. And I'll respect that." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some movie monologue. Just raw honesty. So we laid it out. She agreed to go to therapy. Alone, and with me. Full transparency, passwords, accounts, everything. She said she was willing to do anything I asked, short of a lobotomy. I told her I needed time. Real time. I wasn't going to make a decision in a week or a month. This wasn't just about her screwing someone. It was about the lies, the disrespect, the rewriting of our entire narrative. So that's where we stood, at a fork in the road. No map, no guarantees. Just two people staring at each other across a chasm, wondering if there was still enough left to build a bridge. After we had that talk, life slowed down. We weren't exactly rebuilding, but we weren't walking away either. Just existing in the in-between. We started therapy. Twice a week, first together, then separate. Our therapist, this no-nonsense woman in her 50s with a voice like gravel and a gaze that could melt granite, didn't let either of us off easy. She didn't care about feelings unless they came with accountability. At home, things were quiet. Not in a bad way, but in a deliberate, heavy way. Like both of us were waiting to see who flinched first. She gave me space, finally understood I wasn't going to snap out of it on her timeline. Some nights we sat in the same room, not saying a word, just being. That silence was the most honest we'd been in years. And it was in that silence that I started to understand something: healing isn't linear. Some days I'd feel okay. Like maybe we could make it. Then out of nowhere, I'd be brushing my teeth and a memory would hit me, her in his apartment, passion, or whatever the hell she called it, and I'd want to scream into the drywall. But I didn't. Instead, I'd journal. Hit the gym. Call my buddy and rant about something totally unrelated, like how almonds are overpriced. Anything to keep from slipping into that dark spiral. The thing is, I wasn't staying because I couldn't leave. I was staying to see if what we had was still buried under the rubble. And slowly, very slowly, I started seeing glimpses. A laugh that didn't feel forced. A dinner that ended in actual conversation. A morning where she kissed me on the cheek, and it didn't feel like charity. We weren't healed. Not even close. But we were trying. And for the first time, that felt like something. 3 months in, I reached a tipping point. Not dramatic. No explosive fight, no sudden epiphany in the middle of the night. Just a quiet Sunday morning. I was sitting on the back porch, coffee in hand, dog curled at my feet, birds chirping like they didn't give a damn about human drama. And I realized, I wasn't angry anymore. Not in that raw, knuckle-clenching way I'd been. The fire was out. What was left was something colder, more honest, a kind of clarity. I didn't want to punish her. I didn't want to keep her on a leash, interrogating her every move. That's not a relationship. That's prison. But I also didn't want to keep pretending I felt safe with her. Because I didn't. And that's not her fault anymore, it's mine if I stay and ignore that truth. So I walked inside and told her. I can't do this anymore, I said. Not because I hate you. I don't. I just don't trust you. And I don't think I ever will again. She didn't cry. She just nodded. Maybe she'd been expecting it. Maybe she knew this day was coming before I did. We talked logistics. She offered to move out, said she'd take the guest room until she found a place. No drama. No guilt trips. Just two people dismantling a life they built with careful hands. It hurt like hell, but it also felt right. Because sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes the damage runs too deep. And staying becomes an act of self-betrayal. I chose peace over permanence. She moved out 2 weeks later. Packed up her things with surprising grace, no screaming, no begging for one more chance. Just a quiet, mutual understanding that this chapter was closed. She left the key on the counter, gave the dog one last scratch behind the ears, and walked out without looking back. And then, it was just me. The house felt enormous without her. Every creak of the floorboards, every echo of footsteps reminded me she wasn't there anymore. I boxed up the framed photos, took down the little souvenirs from vacations that now felt like lies, and cleaned the place top to bottom like I was purging bad energy. It wasn't all noble solitude, though. There were nights I stared at the ceiling at 2 a.m., wondering if I'd made a mistake. I'd replay her laughter, the way she used to sneak in hugs while I was cooking, the way she cried when we danced in the kitchen on our anniversary. And then I'd remember that text, "Still thinking about your body on my couch." That was usually enough to bring me back to center. I started rebuilding. Small stuff first, hitting the gym, eating right, sleeping better. I reconnected with old friends I'd let drift. I started therapy solo. Not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand why I ignored the red flags in the first place. And yeah, I started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee and conversations. But this time, I wasn't looking for someone to fill a void. I was making sure I didn't have one. Turns out, I still liked who I was. I just forgot for a while. So here we are. Months later. No more shared toothbrushes or half-truths disguised as apologies. Just me, a decent espresso machine, and a dog that never betrayed my trust. People ask if I regret giving her another chance, those months where we tried to make it work. And honestly? No. I needed to try. Not for her, for me. So I could walk away knowing I didn't quit at the first sign of pain. That I gave grace where I could. That I didn't let bitterness be the last emotion I felt for her. But I also learned that love doesn't mean abandoning yourself. That trust, once broken, isn't just glue and duct tape, it's often a total rebuild. And not everyone is worth rebuilding for. I learned to listen to my gut. To take red flags seriously, even if they're disguised as late-night, work meetings, and suddenly deleted messages. I learned that someone who truly loves you doesn't let you find out the truth by accident. And most of all, I learned that healing doesn't mean going back to who you were. It means becoming someone new, someone stronger, wiser, and less willing to let comfort disguise as commitment. So if you're reading this, sitting in your own mess wondering whether to stay or go, just know this. You're not weak for wanting to fix it. You're not foolish for trying. But you're also not obligated to drown just because someone you love jumped overboard. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do, is swim for shore.